Welcome everyone to Temple Israel and to our third annual Future Focus Forum. We have had so far in this series Mayor Bob Foster and former Governor George Deukmejian. We are very proud to have launched this series as a way to invite leaders in our community to come talk with us about what they see as some of the most pressing issues facing us as a city so that we can continue to grow as a safe, healthy, and prosperous city. And it's with great pride that we as a congregation in particular are hosting these events because we are furthering a tradition of a 91-year-old congregation of very active involvement in the civic, social, political, and business life of this city. And we're very proud to be a citizen of the city of Long Beach. And to introduce tonight's speaker, it's also with great pride that I call up both a neighbor and a friend, Art Levine, who is the host of Straight Talk TV, and I know particularly tonight is very proud to have served for 5 years as the Vice President of the Long Beach Police Foundation. Please join me in welcoming Art Levine.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Before we start, I'd like to recognize Liz Griffin, who's the new head of the East Division. Liz, where are you? Over there. Thank you for joining us. Let's give it. And Councilwoman Susie Price, who's our councilwoman, is a little late. She's at a Peninsula meeting, but will be here later. Also want to introduce Vicki Catlin, who is the manager of the wonderful Gelson's here in town, and they are catering the reception afterwards. Just a few housekeeping notes. There'll be surveys available after the program. We welcome you taking a moment to fill them out and leave them on the table in the back or in the box on the way out. We welcome your comments. This program is being streamed throughout the world on the Temple Israel website, and is also going to be archived and will be viewable for those that were not able to make it tonight. It's now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker, Chief Robert Luna, Chief of Police of the Long Beach Police Department, is a 29-year veteran of the department. He brings a wealth of experience to the job, which includes a wide variety of operational, investigatory, and administrative assignments, including special weapons and tactics, homicide, drug and gang investigations, canine operations, and communications. In commenting on his appointment last November, Long Beach Mayor Robert Garcia said, and I quote, "I have 100% confidence that Chief Luna will lead our department with integrity, strength, and a commitment to community policing. He will ensure that we build a department for the 21st century," close quote. And if you'll permit me a personal comment, I've known the chief for many years and have worked with him in my work with the Long Beach Police Foundation. I know his commitment to the department, to our community, and particularly to the youth of our city. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our Chief of Police, Robert Luna.
Thank you, Art. Thank you for that great introduction. And also, I personally want to thank you in front of everybody for all of your help and assistance during your tenure with being the president of the Long Beach Police Foundation. The Police Foundation was created several years ago to assist the police department through tough budget times where we don't have the opportunity for some of the equipment or training that we need to send people to, specifically our Explorer program, where some of our brightest youth want to become police officers. And through Art's leadership, we were able to raise many funds, get a lot of kids through the Explorer program, send them through some very valuable training, and send a lot of our officers, our supervisors, and our managers to quality training so they can provide better service, and not to mention all the equipment. So thank you very much, Art. Thank you very much for your support. And thank you all for, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. This is great to see. And I always tell people as I travel around the city that this city is a awesome place. I don't think we realize how lucky we are to live or work or play in this city. When I talk to other police chiefs, there are so many challenges in so many cities around us. This city is unique. It's diverse. There is no part of the city that is alike like many others. And it's interesting because as I travel around the city and I go from east to north to south to central to west, it's like different police departments. And one thing I've learned in 29 years of policing this city, you cannot put a can over one part and think that it's going to happen everywhere else. It's very unique. So be proud of our city and the diversity that we have. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself because although I look out in the audience and I see some friends, some people who know me, I also see a lot of people that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting before. So I want to let you know a little bit about myself and who I am and how I think, and more importantly, where I plan on taking our police department forward. I stand before you as a man who is truly living out a dream. I want to say that I've dreamt of being a police officer since I was about 5 years old. And I'm going to say 5 years old because that's as far back as I can remember. It may have started before then. I was a kid growing up in East Los Angeles, and the police weren't too popular in East Los Angeles, and they probably still aren't too popular now. So saying that I wanted to be a police officer in that environment wasn't always the right thing to say. So as I told people I wanted to be a police officer, including family members, they would say to me, "You're crazy. You don't want to be one of them. They're the enemy." And that confused me. Because as I was growing up, and if most of you can remember a show called Adam 12, what I watched on television on Adam 12 wasn't what everybody was telling me the police were like. I used to watch Pete Malloy and Jim Reed in those bright, shiny uniforms, and the way they went out, they loved their job, the way they interacted with people, but they helped people. And that's what attracted me to police work. Because as I was growing up, you're watching superheroes, Batman and Robin, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, all these people, but they wore mask and cape. You get older and you realize, I can't wear a mask and cape and at least not get laughed at, right? So the other way to be a superhero was to be a police officer. And even though I got thrown off track a little bit because I really couldn't find that the people around me that would guide me and mentor me and kind of say, hey, this is where you need to go if this is what you want to do, until I was 18 years old. When I was 18, I showed up at Long Beach City College one day. I was actually picking up a girlfriend of mine at the time, and there was a career day. And I walked up to, guess what? The Long Beach Police Department booth. They were recruiting there. And there was a sergeant by the name of Mike Woodward. I don't know if any of you know him. He has since passed. Great man. And then a name you may recognize, Roberto Uranga, who's now a council person. He used to work for civil service, and they were recruiting. They're the first men who ever actually put their arm around me and said, you want to be a police officer? This is how you do it. This is the track you get on. They gave me some instructions, and what they actually told me to do, they said, hey, you're too young to sign up now because you're only 18, but if you're interested, you can be a reserve officer, and at that time you could do it at 18 years of age. Everything they told me to do, I started doing that same day. I ended up signing up at Long Beach City College. I went to the police academy. I signed up to be a reserve officer. I got accepted into the academy, and I did it for free. And there's another reserve officer who's sitting right in front of me who knows what it's like to be a reserve officer. So thank you for all your years of service, Doctor. And I did it for free, and guess what? I really wanted to be a police officer once I got the training and I was in this uniform and I went out there. So I have spent my entire adult life in this uniform and truly living out a dream. And I tell you that story because it's the way I approach my job. Because I can stand up here and tell you that I'm fulfilling my lifelong dream, I believe that this city and this police department gave me the opportunity to do that. So I feel like I'm indebted to this city. I don't feel like I'm entitled to anything I've gotten. I feel like I have a lot to pay back. And that's part of the service that I provide. So when people talk to me about 24/7 service, 7 days a week, and really throughout my whole career, I've had multiple jobs on the department. Art talked about my career path, and I've been blessed that I have had so many neat jobs between narcotics and canine, homicide and SWAT. At times I served on SWAT and served on narcotics at the same time. And people would say, you're crazy, you're burning the candles at both ends. And I was like a little kid in a candy store. I couldn't wait to go back to work. I loved the fact that I was getting called out. I was having fun. Things did change once I got married, because then I had a wife to remind me that I had other obligations, and she still does a really good job of reminding me. So in a sense, that is my journey in a summary of who's talking to you tonight and who I am. So when you hear me talk, whether it's on the news or you see quotes from me in the paper, or you see me out publicly, which I do a whole lot of, you know who you're talking to and how I feel. So I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about my philosophy as your chief of police. My philosophy, or as I'm talking to my employees internally or our community members, I broke it up into 3 components, and there are core values. And number 1 is our ethical values. For those of you who are familiar with law enforcement, it's ingrained in us from day one, our law enforcement code of ethics. And in those law enforcement code of ethics, there's multiple paragraphs, and I'm not going to bore you with all of them, but to me, it excites me because it is fundamentally what the duty of a police officer is from day one in the academy. And it talks about constitutional policing. It talks about treating people fairly, and that's all people. I don't care what race you are, what sexual preference you have, it doesn't matter. You treat everybody with dignity and respect. It also talks about maintaining professional standards, not only on duty while you're wearing this uniform, but also off duty, because we're supposed to be a cut above everybody else and keep up that standard. And then the last part, to summarize that portion of it, is the way you work, meaning that if you work an 8-hour shift, or you work a 10-hour shift, or you work a 12-hour shift, you will come to work and you will give it your all. I will not and have never accepted mediocrity. I don't believe in it. I believe mediocrity gets you in trouble in so many ways. So that's part of the standard that we will uphold. The second part of what we're talking about is intelligence. And it's not so much how smart we are, it's how we're going to approach policing in this city. And we are going to police this city in a very smart and focused manner. We're going to look at information. We're going to look at our analysts. Where are they going to direct us to? We are going to look at technology to make sure that we are maximizing our efforts. And we're already doing that. And we have to do that. And I'm going to talk about some challenges that we're going to face in law enforcement here in the next couple of years. And I'll tell you why that even becomes more important. But best practices and technology will be a big part of that. Another part that you're going to see a whole lot of focus on within that intelligence portion is, I don't know how many of you like history, especially law enforcement history, but when I was in the police academy as a young officer, I learned about Sir Robert Peel's 9 principles of policing. And I won't bore you with all 9 principles. You can look them up on in your spare time. But basically, it talks about the style of policing. And it talks about the police being the community and the community being the police. Because I'm here to tell you, and if I've learned anything in the last 29 years, is the police cannot be successful if we do not have the full cooperation and trust of our community. We will not succeed. And I think that we haven't always understood that fully. And there's, I think, a lot of things that have brought us to that conclusion. Some of it is part of the budget, that we have less people, we have to work smarter. A lot of it are current events. I don't think anybody can turn on the television, the radio, or look up news on the internet or pick up a newspaper and you don't see a negative story about law enforcement right now. A lot of it having to do with use of force and things of that nature. So we're very cognizant of those issues, and we will address them. And the third portion of it, and it's no less important, is about respect. And as simple as that word sounds, it is fundamentally the way we have to treat people if we want to be successful. And the way I'm telling my employees about respect, that it starts with me, Robert Luna, the Chief of Police, that I need to treat every single person with absolute dignity and respect. And that is, when I see people in the hallway, good morning, I'm smiling, I'm positive, I show them what I'm all about. And then I expect, in turn, for them to treat all of our employees the same exact way. And at the end of the day, what I'm really looking for is that our employees, I don't care if they're frontline uniformed officers, they're on our SWAT team, they're working our front desk, they're answering phones at our communication center, they're jailers in our jail, they're on Marine Patrol, at the airport, our port, wherever. I want them to treat people with absolute respect. That's easier said than done. In police work, people don't call 911 when everything is good. We usually respond to situations where people's lives have completely fallen apart, and we're going to try and mediate and put things back together. That's not always an easy position to be in. We recruit and hire and train our officers to the best of our ability. And I believe that the majority of our officers, and I'm talking in the 90 percentile range, do an outstanding job. They really do, day in and day out. And I don't think that they get recognized enough for the job that they do because of the difficulties that we face day in and day out. So that's really, really important. A big part of that is listening to people, listening to different points of view, even if you don't like it. I can't stand up here and tell you exactly how I'm going to police this city if I'm not going out. Our command staff, our officers aren't going out, and we're not listening to you as to what the problems are. I may think that gang enforcement is the most important thing in the city, but you may say, you know what? No, it's not. It's speeders on my street. It's graffiti. It's trash in the alley. And those are things that we have to be very cognizant of, listen, and then more importantly, respond to those complaints, and working through our city partners, make those go away. And then the last component of respect is explaining why we do things. I don't think we've been that good at that, and I'm really going to work on that. And that is, for example, when we use force, for example, we don't always take the time to explain what our policies are like, what our training guidelines are like, and why we do what we do. We're working currently with a marketing firm to put on the internet how our use of force process works. So that way, if you have a question about something that we do, whether it's use of force related or filing a complaint, or there's an officer-involved shooting, when those occur, that you know exactly what's happening and where it's at in the process. So we're working towards that, and that's a part of sharing what we do a little bit better with our community, who always doesn't understand what we do unless bad things happen. And that's interesting because law enforcement, like I said earlier right now, is probably being scrutinized more than it ever has. And by the way, we don't mind being scrutinized. It doesn't always feel good to be scrutinized for what you do, but we remind our employees that you put on this uniform and you pin on this badge and you have an awful lot of authority. Can you think of how many jobs in this world, especially in the United States, have the authority to take somebody's life or take somebody's freedom away? That's a lot of power, and we have to respect that power, and we get our support from all of you. So we have to do what we need to do to make sure that we are legitimate in your eyes. And that's why that partnership is more important now than ever, and that's what this police department is going to be working towards. I want to talk about a couple of challenges that we face out there. And I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I am going to talk about this anti-police sentiment that is very prevalent out there. Right now, as I go out and talk to our officers, they're great people, and they do this job because they're service-oriented. They want to help people. But right now, it's really hard to get in that black and white and put on this uniform because the perception even internally to the police department is that the majority of the community doesn't support them. Because when you turn on the television, you would think everybody hates the police based on what you're reading, what you're seeing. And I'm one that reminds them that that is not true. I sat at the back of this room and I listened to many of you walk up to me and tell me stories about how great our officers are doing. From somebody that investigated a case and found your daughter, which is extremely special, to somebody who brought somebody who lives on a boat a pie. I could go on and on with the stories that you hear. Bottom line is they're very positive. I even heard some officers singing happy birthday for somebody's birthday. And that's who our people are. And one of my jobs is to go out and share stories like that, just so everybody realizes that police officers, it's like that kid when I was 5 years old. I wanted to wear this uniform because I thought a police officer was a hero. I still believe that police officers are heroes. I just think that in this day and age, especially with the media, it's shifted a whole lot, and that's something we all have to work on. So one of the things I'd ask everyone that's sitting here today is that when you see a police officer in uniform out there, wave at them, say hello, just acknowledge them. I'll tell you what, that smile and just, hey, thumbs up means a whole lot. That would be, excuse me, very much appreciated. And then just something really quick as I'm talking about the anti-police sentiment. In a lot of the cases that you hear about across the country, there seems to be a constant theme. And I'm not going to stand up here and I'm not going to defend every action that I've read about or seen on television, but I could tell you this. I haven't read or I haven't talked to anybody directly who knows exactly what happened. Because somebody reads 2 lines on the internet, they think they know all the facts of everything that happened, and that's dangerous. That is very dangerous. I think it's all of our responsibility to ask tough questions, like you can ask them of me, and find out the facts. And that way people don't overreact to things that may be going on. But I talk about a shared responsibility. A shared responsibility, that means that absolutely the police have a responsibility to treat people with respect and all the things I talked about. But when somebody gets stopped by the police, you have to cooperate. Even if you don't agree with what is going on, don't pick a fight at that time. I cannot tell you how many contacts our officers have where they're walking up to a window on a traffic stop and the first things they hear are vulgar. I'm not going to repeat them, especially in the house of God, but just they don't get treated too well at times. And people believe that, well, I was stopped because I am, and you can fill in the blank. It could be anything or anybody. And I'm here to say that if you feel you were incorrectly stopped or you were mistreated, there is a process in place to follow. And you need to file a complaint. That's the way to handle it. You don't argue. You don't start throwing fists. You don't start challenging officers to fight. Because I'm going to tell you something. From day one in the academy, an officer learns to defend themselves, and we don't teach our people to lose fights. That's just bluntly the way it is out there. We have a job to do, a very difficult job to do. And so we want that cooperation. But I also understand that at times officers may overreact. And that's why it's so important to file those complaints. And just real quick, not to get off on a tangent on this, some people will say, hey, if I file a complaint, nothing happens to them. You protect your own. You do this and you do that. I'm going to tell you something that as we look at, and there's a lot of scrutiny for complaints when they come in. When I look at a complaint and it has an officer's name and it's a one-on-one, you may argue, well, who's right? The citizen who complained or the officer? Well, if it's a one-on-one, usually for us that comes back as a not sustained. And somebody may say, well, look, nothing happened to that officer. But this is the key. If that officer is mistreating people out there, guess what's going to happen? He's going to do it again. Somebody's going to complain. And I get a second or third complaint, even a second complaint, and it has the same thing. Oh, he said this to me. Oh, yeah, but it's a one-on-one. Well, now I'm seeing a pattern. And that gives me the opportunity, my supervisors, managers, to start addressing that from a training perspective or depending on the severity of the contact or incident to something much greater. And most people don't understand this because their personnel matters and we don't discuss this publicly. Can anybody guess how many police officers get terminated per year in Long Beach PD for doing something bad? We average 6 to 8. I'm not proud of that, but it tells you there's a level of accountability. And for anyone who's ever served on our Civil Service Commission, ask them or somebody who's on our union, ask them what they think about Long Beach Police Department's management discipline. They'll tell you it's severe. They think we're unfair at times. We do discipline police officers. It's just not something that we advertise. I talk about it in this group, but I can't give you names and I can't give you specific circumstances because the law prevents me from doing that. So please keep that in mind. Homeland Security, this is Long Beach. We are one of the biggest cities in this country, 7th largest in California. We have our own port. We have our own airport. We are constantly communicating with our federal partners. I meet with representatives from people we have on task forces that keep us updated on world events, national events, regional events, and local events. And I never want to stand before a group and scare anybody. That's not my job. My job's actually to try and protect you. But there are people out here from a terrorism perspective that want to hurt us, okay? And I tell you that not to scare you, but that you need to remain vigilant. You need to remain vigilant and always pay attention. And you hear something in law enforcement we talk about in the crime world and Homeland Security world. It says, if you see something, you say something. That has become more and more important these days because the face of terrorism has really changed. We're always concerned about somebody who is funding and creating problems around the globe. And a lot of times we get complacent and say, well, that's not going to touch us. But what about the individual who's on the internet and gets motivated by somebody, a cleric of some kind, who says, go out and hurt people? And it's kind of a lone wolf situation. And it's more important now than ever that if you realistically are around somebody who is talking, and you may say, oh, they're crazy. Oh, they're this. Just discount them. You can't discount anybody. Call us. Have us check them out. More than likely, it's somebody who is just talking. Maybe they're mentally ill and they need help, and we can help them. But when we start discounting things of this nature, people get hurt. And we don't want that to happen in Long Beach. And we are a target specifically because of our port and all of our infrastructure. So please keep that in mind. And we have people who are working on this 24/7, and it's something we consistently work on. Now, crime, you've heard a lot of talk about crime the last several years. When you start doing comparisons, especially when you compare the last 5 years, that this city is about as safe as it's ever been. That has been true, but I'm starting to see some trends that are a little bit disturbing to me. I'm starting to see that some of our property crime is starting to go up, and some of our violent crime is starting to go up. Now, what I'm seeing in the violent crime categories, it's not like it's been in the past, where in the past you had pockets or patterns of a lot of gang activity that you can address with shootings and things of that nature. What we're seeing now is more one-on-one assaults, and usually happening in somebody's home. And they're usually people that know each other. Domestic situations, a neighbor, they get fed up with each other, there's a stabbing, things of that nature that we're really trying to keep an eye on. And we focus on crime. We're sitting down every week and what's happening? What is it exactly? Is there a pattern here? How are we responding to it? Accountability is a big part of what we do. And so those are things that we have to keep a very close eye on. Something that we're really looking at very hard is Proposition 47 that passed by the voters. We're paying a whole lot of attention to that because I don't know if the intent of that proposition is actually what's coming out the other end here. And it's still a little early to tell, but I don't like the indicators thus far. In Prop 47, when the voters approved that, it was that lower level offenders would not be incarcerated, right? And people who were using narcotics. So for example, the possession of heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine. They used to be felonies. Prop 47 turned those to misdemeanors, okay? I have been a police officer for 29 years. And who do you think commits the majority of our property crime? Unfortunately, people who are hooked to drugs. And we see that over and over. But what's happening now is when our officers arrest them, they're not staying in jail. And Prop 47 made some promises about creating funding for mental illness and substance abuse. And I really can't wait for the day I see $1 coming from that, because I haven't seen one. But what I do see is people we're putting in jail that are getting right out and committing crime after crime after crime. And that is really frustrating to our officers. And we're starting to see the numbers in crime starting to go up. And that's very unfortunate. So now more than ever, we have to work together as a team. Community-based, that see something, say something. You see something suspicious, you've got to call us. You've got to, don't think you're disturbing us. Whether it's 911 or the 7-digit line we have, call us when something is happening. The last thing I'll address is emergency preparation. You may say, why are you talking to us about emergency preparation? This is why. I can't tell you, my device here, and probably many of yours, every time there's an earthquake of 3.0 or above, my device goes off and tells me there's a 3.0 earthquake in this region. This thing is going off all the time. Is there more earthquakes? I am not a geologist. I can't tell you that. But I can tell you this. We live in earthquake country. And It's not a matter of if, it's when. And for us as a community, in order for us to be stronger, we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared, and most experts say have 3 days of water and food. I bump that up to a minimum of 5 to 7. And I would actually even recommend even more than that. Because when the big earthquake hits and you pick up your phone, guess who's going to be on the other line, on the other end? Nobody. It's going to be a dead sound. You're going to try and turn on your electricity. It's not going to come on. You're going to turn on your faucet in your home. It's not going to come on. And you're going to be screaming and yelling like we typically do when we don't get something we want. And guess what? The services in the city are going to be strapped. When you have to prioritize, when a significant event happens, it's life. So we're going to be responding to collapsed buildings and other serious events. Not to say any of you may not be seriously injured, but if you're walking wounded and you can get yourself to a hospital, you may have to do that. But the message there is you have to have a plan to take care of yourself, to take care of your neighbors. Whatever neighborhood you live in, find out who the special needs people are and go check on them first. Once you're okay, it's like, who do we check on next? And make sure that everybody's okay. And if we can all do that across the city, we'll be looking pretty darn good for the next big one. Because if you listen to somebody like Dr. Lucy Johnson, who talks about earthquakes and is actually working for the city of LA right now, and they predict when the next big earthquake happens, that water could be cut off to this area for months at a time. And obviously, we'd figure out how to fly things in, but that takes a while. So you have to be able to take care of yourself for the first several days. That is my presentation to you. It's important for you to hear from me and kind of a basic philosophy of where we're going, how I think. But it's even more important for me to listen to all of you. So I think, Art, you're going to facilitate some questions, and hopefully I have answers. If not, I'll find a way to get them to you.
Thank you. Is this on? Thank you so much, Chief. Let me just start with kind of a practical one that many of us are aware of, that some difficult budgetary times are ahead. The city had a surplus this year, but in the next year and the next couple of years, we're going to be facing deficits due to increased PERS contributions, the decline in the price of oil and all. And the department has suffered some serious cutbacks over the last 5 years, maybe down 20% in personnel from their peak. I know you had an academy last year, but just speak to policing in an environment of increasing financial pressure.
It's a reality. It's a reality that we face, and it is that time of the year where we're putting numbers together for the upcoming year. And unfortunately, we are looking at some reductions. Again, most city departments are. We're not sure exactly what that's going to look like. My overall attitude is I didn't get hired to complain. I didn't get hired to make excuses. I'm going to stand up tall. Our department is, and we're going to do whatever it takes to carry the job on. I mean, there'll be a time where collectively we come out and we talk about the specific numbers and cuts and maybe some options for things to do. But yeah, at this point, we've been doing pretty darn good. If you consider we lost over 20% of our sworn staffing and another close to 25% of our civilian staffing over the last 6 years, the men and women of this police department are doing an amazing job. But that's with help from all of you, because our partnership has never been stronger, but it needs to obviously improve.
And one final question before we turn it over to the audience.
Yes, sir.
Community policing, I know, is near and dear to your heart, and particularly the youth of our city. Would you just want to say a few words on that?
Yeah, when we talk about community policing, when I talked about our core values, especially the 9 principles. It's not an option for us. It's the way we're going to do work, meaning that we're going to problem solve. We're going to problem solve with you. We're going to continue to be very visible, accessible, responsive to our community's needs in any which way we can. And that's the fundamentals of having a police department that actually works with its community, obviously within reason. In regards to our youth, I'm going to do everything I can with our mayor, and you've heard the mayor speak very eloquently about working more with our school district, Cal State Long Beach, and Long Beach City College. When you look at some of the statistics out there, they're staggering. When you talk about poverty, a lack of health, and you start equating everything, it's a lack of education. How many kids do we have in our city that are not able to read by the time they get to 3rd grade? It's a shame. And we really have to roll up our sleeves as a community, whether you're retired, whether if you're active out there, somehow, some way, we've got to figure out a way to talk to people about how important education is. Because I would love to see a day where we're not arresting people anymore. But there is definitely a tie between a lack of education and people going into the system. And we talk just real quick, it's not all a focus on children, it's parents. Because I get very irritated at parents who have kids in 5th and 6th grade and don't believe they need to go to school anymore. And I can't, I'm wondering, where's that coming from? And we end up putting, once in a while, parents in jail, unfortunately, because they don't get it. So my focus is more on parents and making sure they know their kids. They have children. It's a priority.
And I know our city prosecutor feels strongly about that, and he's going after.
Doug Halbert is amazing. He's an amazing partner.
Well, here's one of your most famous police reservists, Dr. Albin.
Thank you, Chief, for a wonderful presentation. During your 29 years, you've seen gangs that not only hate police officers, but hate everyone else. Do you think gangs in Long Beach are proliferating the gang members that hate us, or do you think the gang structure is decreasing?
The gangs in Long Beach have definitely decreased. Even though I talk a little bit about violent crime sneaking up, if you look at put it in perspective and you look at crime overall, especially if you do 5-year comparisons, there's almost no comparison. And let me just give you a quick example. Last year, we had 25 homicides. That was the lowest recorded homicides we've ever had. And I'll argue 25 is way too many. When I was a young homicide detective in 1991, we had 131 that year. So if you look at over the years, the many homicides we've had and where we're at today, there's no comparison. A lot of them were gang related. We look at gangs very differently. We focus on the structure and leadership of gangs, and we have been very, very effective in dealing with gangs. Now, have we gotten rid of all of them? No, gangs will never go away. It's part of our culture, part of our society, but we have sent a very strong message that if you're in Long Beach and you're going to commit specifically violent crime and you're involved in a gang, we'll try and help you. And if we can't help you and you're committing crimes, we're going to put you away. We really are. We're going to put you in jail. And we're going to continue to be tough on specifically gangs and violent crime. But yeah, the problem is not like it was, say, in the late 80s or early 90s. Very different world here, specifically in Long Beach.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks. Chief, thank you for the talk. I think it was very helpful, and I love your very positive, constructive attitude. I think that's great that you're trying to share that with your whole staff. As I mentioned to you earlier, I was one of the founders and the first chair of the Citizen Police Complaint Commission. And what you say about complaints is true. You know, I say he hit me with a stick and called me a bad name, and the officer says, I would never do such a thing. So it's sort of he said, she said, and it's very, very hard to figure out, what went wrong or who did what. But I think, and I don't know if this is possible, it seems to me very often when people make a complaint, they just sort of want to get it off their chest and they want to be heard. I don't know if there's any way for some kind of mediation to take place between a citizen who's complaining and the officer or officers who are involved. Because I think very often they're just misunderstandings. I was upset, my kid was screaming, my husband was upset, whatever, and the officer's under pressure. And I think that very often if people can talk face to face, it helps with a skilled mediator to resolve issues. So I'll just throw that out. The other thing I'd like to ask you about is mental health. There are many, many mentally ill people who have interactions with the police, and I wonder what kind of training the police are getting in dealing with mentally ill people. Thank you.
Okay. On the first question you had, listening is extremely important, and we need to get better at it. I think we have some people who do a great job and some people who can do a little bit better. And I can't tell you how much it's worth when somebody just sits there and just listens. And believe it or not, 90% of the people who complain against the police just want to be heard. They want to know that somebody's listening, somebody cares, and that they're making a difference. And hopefully that activity doesn't happen again. So yeah, absolutely. And we are working feverishly with all our employees, specifically our supervisors, to make sure that when they go out to make contact with any citizen who's complaining, that they're listening first, as opposed to trying to lecture people. And believe it or not, it's not that difficult to do. So we'll get there. We'll continue to work hard at it. But when that doesn't happen, please let us know, because we don't know. We can't fix something that we don't know is broken. So please let us know when that doesn't happen. Mental illness is something that's very close to me in my heart. For some personal reasons, and most of you know who Jackie Lacey is. She's our district attorney. If you've never listened to her speak or follow her, she is an amazing person. And mental illness is a big thing to her. And the Long Beach Police Department, about a year and a half ago, joined a group of LA County, or officials in LA County, that included firemen, policemen, the district attorney's office, the public defender's office, LA County Health, LA County Mental Health, and there's several others I'm missing. NAMI is one of the organizations involved, and we are working together to look at the way we look at mental illness very differently. So to make a long story short, I'm really excited about a pilot project we're going to be doing with the Department of Mental Health, where we're going to put a clinician in our booking area where we bring people in, and they will help us evaluate people. So instead of shipping people upstairs to jail where they don't belong, if they committed a lower level offense, that we're able to find a bed for them and get them the treatment that the patient needs. And that is somewhere we're trying to get to. It takes a lot of work. It takes money. It takes a coordinated effort, especially with DMH. But you know what? I've seen some progress thus far that I'm really excited about. And I'll be one of the guys getting up on top of Signal Hill and screaming when it starts working out. And and from each, we're also part of that program, is that the goal is that a large percentage of our police officers will get a minimum of 16 hours training in how to deal with the mentally ill, how to de-escalate situations. Because we have officers who are patrol officers that are called mental evaluation teams, that are connected with Department of Mental Health folks out there who respond, but unfortunately we have 4 teams out there, and that doesn't cover us 24/7. So there's a lot of work we need to do in the mental illness field, but I like where we're at. We're way ahead of many other departments, but we encounter a lot of mental illness out there.
Chief Luna, as you know, I live with a very deep appreciation of the support that your police officers provided my family in a time of crisis. But I also live with a fear, and that's what I want to ask you about. I am to be the father of 2 sons. One of them is white, one of them is black. I know the history of police behavior in this country in general. I may have some misconceptions about it, but there are real issues for African Americans. So I'd like you to elaborate a bit and tell us in really specific terms about the things you're doing in terms of recruitment, training, and discipline, so that I will no longer have to have a well-founded fear that my African American son will be treated differently by some police officers than my white son.
Very good question. And I'm going to try and address all those questions. And if I don't, it's because I just maybe skip one in my head as I'm thinking, wow, that's a really good question. Number one, from a recruiting perspective, civil service recruits for our department. And right now, our department doesn't reflect our community, specifically with African Americans, Cambodian Americans, and some other Pacific Islanders and women. With Hispanics, we're almost to the point where we're matching the percentage of where we are in the city. And it's been a challenge. I'm involved not in the recruiting and hiring specifically. I'm responsible for it now. But when we have our hiring, when we get our hiring, we do what we call a blind process. And what that means is that we don't know the name, the sex, or the race of the person that we're hiring. And what that does is we're focused on their background, the standards that we set, whether it's driving history, credit history, work history, what kind of a person they are, how they tested through civil service, the writing exam, the interview process. And in looking at that, we're not getting the diversity out of that I would like. So I'm working with the civil service director, Candace. And Candace has been very open to changing the way we test on the entry-level test. And we're going to be looking at, and we're probably going to be following the San Francisco police model, because they're testing. They hire an outside company to do the testing, and they're looking at people not based on what they can write, but how they make decisions. It's almost like a multiple choice test once you see a scenario. And they've seen some of their numbers go up. So we're looking at different things because we do need to improve on some of the numbers. But at the same time, no matter how much pressure we get, and most of the pressure, believe it or not, is put on by us internally because we want diverse candidates, we cannot and will not lower the standard for anybody. And I say that because when I was promoted, people focused on the fact that I was Hispanic. It's the first Hispanic chief. Now, I'm very proud of my heritage, don't get me wrong, but I didn't get promoted because I was Hispanic. I got promoted because I was the most qualified, my experience, my education, and the cherry on the cake was I just happened to be Hispanic. And that's very important. And I opened my door. I can't tell you how many kids come into my office, high school kids, college kids, different colors. It's a rainbow of people that I'm trying to motivate to become police officers. But let me just share a quick story with you. I remember being around a bunch of 8th graders, and I walked up to a young African-American young man. And as I walked up to him, if I'm in uniform, it's like, hey, what do you think about being a police officer? And this one kid responds to me by saying, I don't want to be one of them. And I said, well, why not? He goes, because I don't want to be hated. And that was pretty profound to me because you talk about the history between police and specifically the African American community, and it's not the greatest. It isn't. But this is a new day. It really is. And if you follow me and you listen to what I'm saying, I'm as open as anybody that's out there, accepting of anybody, specifically somebody who's a minority who wants to be a police officer for the right reasons. So we're going to do everything we can. I mean, this Saturday, I'm speaking at Cal State Long Beach to 100 black men. Why am I there? I'm recruiting. Every time I come out here to an event like this, I'm recruiting. I want to tell my story about growing up in East LA to let everybody know that not everybody came from a law enforcement family. That I take a different path here. And I think the more I share that, we'll work harder to do that. So sorry to go on about that part of it, but the other part you asked about regarding discipline and the treatment of people, we don't teach our officers to treat any one race better than others. And this is our job to go out and share, not only from the police department, but from yourself as a responsible father. And it sounds like you are a very responsible father, is to teach my Hispanic son that, hey, when you encounter the police, you immediately are respectful. Yes, sir. No, sir. Even if you don't like what they said, because you don't know why that police officer stopped you. Maybe they just got a radio call that the man with the green button-down shirt and glasses robbed the liquor store down the street. You don't know that. Maybe somebody called. Maybe you look close to somebody else, but you don't know what that officer's thinking. It tells you to put up your hands. Put up your hands, even if you didn't do anything. And that's what I instill in my son, because I don't want him to have a negative contact with law enforcement. When I was growing up, I had many negative contacts with law enforcement. I remember one time an officer grabbing me by the back of my hair and hitting my head on the hood of his car and my nose bleeding. Then I go home and tell my dad what just happened, and then he hits me because he says I probably did something wrong to begin with. But that's the way things were. That's the way my dad treated me. That's the way I grew up. Right, wrong, who knows? But it's so important, and I don't think parents do it enough, to talk to their children about what do you do when the police stop you. And literally, it doesn't have to be about minorities. It's anybody. How many people feel good if you're driving down the street and all of a sudden you see blue and red lights come on? That's not a good feeling. And a lot of people don't behave well when that happens. They say the weirdest things. They do the weirdest things. So it's like, stay calm, be respectful, give him the information he needs, and you would be surprised that 99% of the time those contacts will go very, very well. And if they don't, we go back to that complaint process I'm talking about. Because I'm telling you that our police department, because people talk about racial profiling, we get a lot of training in racial profiling. We stop people based on activity, not race. I mean, there's times when a call will come out and say, a male Hispanic wearing glasses, that'll attract somebody to you. They still have to have probable cause to stop you. And then if we find something different, there is discipline attached to there. So I can tell you from man to man standing here as not only the chief of police, but the father of a 14-year-old, that your son, whether he's black, white, purple, yellow, can walk these streets. And as long as, if he gets stopped and he shows respect, everything is going to go well. And that's for any color. Any color.
Chief, do you think body cameras can help in this process?
I think body cameras first of all, body cameras is a pilot program that we're going to be looking at. Probably by the end of July, we will have a pilot program between 50 and 60 that we're paying for to come forward. From the analysis that we're doing and the reason we're bringing them here, it sounds like it's working out from a community relations perspective. There's some other things that we're concerned about cost, because the camera companies sell you the camera for cheap, but what they don't tell you is the storage costs a whole lot of money, and the more you store, there's a lot of money behind there, and the logistics to support those things are very expensive. But everywhere the cameras have gone, there are 70 to 80% reductions in citizen complaints, uses of force, and officers getting injured in fights. That's a fact. And here's the thing. Most people think, okay, a camera, a police officer will behave better. Everybody behaves better when the camera's on. And that is something that, that we're really looking forward to, but that'll help. I just want to make sure, he asked me several questions, very good questions. I wanted to make sure I touched on all of them.
One other part of it is really about training, and to be very blunt about it, particularly about retraining, I would say, older officers, and maybe particularly older white officers.
Yes, everybody gets the same training, and when you have 807 officers, you would hope that every single one of them are perfect. That's the standard. And my job is to set that standard. This is the way we're going to treat people. This is the way you'll behave at work. And if you don't, there's consequences. And we make that very clear because people pay attention to what you reward, what you discipline for, and what you sanction. And my messages throughout the department are very clear that you got to meet those standards. And if you treat people any less than that, there will be a consequence. But it's very important that if anybody, like I said earlier, runs into a situation, you got to let us know. You got to let us know if there's a pattern out there that we're not aware of. But the training does exist, and we expect everyone to follow it. And we expect everyone to treat everybody with dignity and respect. No ifs and buts about it. But that goes both ways, right? It's a shared responsibility, as I call it.
Chief Luna, congratulations on being appointed as our chief.
Thank you.
I hear that you're doing an excellent job. And my question to you is this. There's a great concern among parents because of what's happening with the marijuana dispensaries. And some cities are already having a lot of problems with the teenagers getting to the dispensaries. I know that the city of Huntington Park has like 20 dispensaries. The mayor closed a lot of the ones in Los Angeles, so they came to Huntington Park. And what we found out is that they are licensed by the state of California, but not through the city. So now what the chief Cisneros has to do is to do a court order to get them out, and it's creating a big problem, not only in Huntington Park, but in other cities. So what is your opinion of the dispensaries? How is it going to have an effect on Long Beach?
Very interesting question. When we had dispensaries in the city recently, they were very difficult to manage. When you think of medical marijuana, you think of patients that legitimately need marijuana, okay? And you feel for those patients. But unfortunately, a lot of what we were seeing were a lot of kids like you described in and around some of these dispensaries, and we were getting so many complaints from citizens regarding quality of life issues in and around the dispensaries. Traffic, you'd have cars coming up with stereos bumping, people getting out, being very disrespectful to other businesses around there. So it was a challenge, and I don't have all my numbers in front of me, but for every illegal dispensary that popped up, there were so many hours, employee hours that were devoted to closing each of those down. And those were hours that were taken away from your police department that should have been doing other things. So we're kind of doing this exercise again. And at the end of the day, it's the will of the people. I'm a servant. And I'm going to serve this community the best I can. And if our policymakers decide to do that, then we have to figure out a way to manage the situation because it was very difficult to manage the first time around. I have officers that are looking at me like going, "Boss, please do something about this. Don't let this come back. Do you see what it did to us?" There were times where we were dealing with so many complaints that we weren't able to deal with other prevalent issues that were going on out there in the community. So it's a tough place to be right now, at least for me. But what I would suggest to all of you, whether you're on one side of this issue or not, don't be afraid to come forward and voice your opinion to your representatives, to come to city council and tell them about the way you feel. I find that a lot of people I talk to that are against it won't go to city council because they say they're afraid. And I don't know what they're afraid of. It's like, hey, everybody's got a right to voice their opinion, whether they're pro or against. But remember, it's what that council will vote in the direction that we go.
I think we have another question here on this issue.
A couple of comments. I have the current report from the Citizen Police Complaint Commission, and it's not available in printing, from being printed out because it's so expensive, and they don't have enough money to really do a good job. Another thing, racial profiling, something that occurred under the radar, was a Deputy X who racially profiled people. He was a sheriff's deputy for over 2 years, breaking the lenses of license plates, scraping off tags off of scraping license plate stickers off of the license plates. And the Sheriff's Department never issued a report. They were hurting people here in Long Beach. And now my question, shortly after you became chief, I was at a Greater Long Beach Coalition for the Homeless, where you spoke, and I discussed with you the lobby of the police department at 400 West Broadway, not having any sign or forms in any other language except English. I had even appeared in front of the Citizen Police Complaint Commission on June 12, 2014. I'd written a letter to Random Lengths, which is a paper in San Pedro, their August 21st edition. And it's still that way today, except the Citizens Police Complaint Commission forms are in 3 languages, but there's no internal affairs form. And right on the window, if you are interested in victims' rights, there's the same poster that I complained about at least 5 times that has Steve Cooley's name on it. Why, in the lobby of the police station, and I spoke with the lady that's in charge of it at the Antioch Church when the command staff came out, why does this police department not keep its lobby in having it be a welcoming environment? What would I do to try and change that? There's absolutely nothing that I could do that I haven't done already. Thank you, Chief.
A number of questions there.
I don't think there were questions. They were all comments.
Yeah, but what about the lobby environment?
I remember talking to you at the Homeless Coalition, and I issued a project to be done to change the signage. If you're telling me it's not done, I'm very disappointed that it's not done. There's really no excuse for it not being done. So, Liz, if you can remind me, we can talk to Braid and Karen and find out why that hasn't been done. Obviously, we're a very diverse city. We want to welcome anybody, specifically if it's in different languages. So,
fair enough.
We apologize for it not being done, and we'll take care of it.
Hi, Chief. I'm with you. I think dope is a bad thing. Oh, yeah. Give the chief a hand. Give the chief a hand. Hi, Chief. I'm with you. I think dope is going to destroy our country. And you're talking to an old hippie here. So anyway, my problem I have is that my father was Jewish. My mother was Christian. I'm a bisexual man living here in Long Beach. And I was on dope. That's why I'm against dope, because I was there and I went to the Church of Scientology 40 years ago, and they got me off dope. The reason I'm standing here alive today, thank God, is the Church of Scientology. Anyway, the problem I have now is that, I have been repeatedly threatened here in Long Beach by people who tell me to get out of Long Beach and leave, and if I don't, they're going to hurt me. And I don't know. that concerns me because I don't know if it's because I'm Jewish, because I'm gay, bisexual, because I went to the Church of Scientology to get help to get off drugs. What are you going to do to protect people like me who people associate with practically every minority there is? Let's see, the only thing that I'm not is African American, but I might as well be because I never know if someone's going to shoot me because of my history, which has been, you know, I'm a senior citizen living here in Long Beach. I'm retired. You know, I worked, paid my taxes. You know, I don't have a criminal record. You know, so basically I'm a good guy that somehow is being treated like Hitler treated the Jews. I'm not only Jewish, but I'm gay.
I guess one question would be, have you filed a complaint?
Yeah, you know what I'll do is, if you don't mind, I will have either Liz or I will talk to him after the meeting. It sounds like there's some pretty deep issues there, and we need to deal with that privately, if that's okay.
Excellent. Oh,
You were born in the East, or grew up in East LA, so did my husband, Ray Alpert, and he was very active in the PAL group. And I know they do wonderful work. Is there any way I could start? My husband died in June, and is there any way that I could help form a group here and really get to work on that?
Let's talk about that after this meeting. Your husband is an amazing man. He was amazing. He gave so much back, and I remember him well. I'd love to sit down and talk to you to see if there's opportunities, whether it's through the police department or the Long Beach Police Foundation. There's always a way to get some good things done. So yeah, thank you for offering.
I wasn't going to talk about this subject, but since it's come up, when you are talking about the medical marijuana clinics, when it happened before and then they put a ban in place, there were a number of medical marijuana clinics that were giving, or not giving, but they were providing people who really did need it, and there were some that were not good, and I totally agree with that, and those should have been closed down. But unfortunately, the ones that were doing the right things, that were good neighbors, et cetera, those got closed down too. And when Proposition 215 came in, basically it was there for a reason. People voted for it. There are people that do need it. And it's like saying, gee, banks actually have much more crime than the clinics did, so why aren't we closing down all the banks? We have hundreds of bars in Long Beach, and they create problems. Why aren't they all being closed down? So the targeting of medical marijuana patients and their, cultivation, their, the things that even when they're following the law is very prejudicial on the part of the police department. What are you going to do about it?
thank you.
I disagree. Obviously, we've discussed it before. There's Diane and I go way back. We're actually good friends. She's very passionate about medical marijuana. I don't believe we were unfair. The amount of complaints that we got on a lot of the legal ones were taking up a whole lot of time and a whole lot of time of our resources. And again, I don't know if all the citizens of the city have taken the time to look at all the facts. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be up to them to figure out which way we go. But here's the bottom line. When a citizen calls us and complains about nuisance activity around one of these locations, we can't ignore it. We have to address it. So I'm not in a position to say, I can't go, it's not important. So at the end of the day, we just have to figure out where our limited resources are going to be best used.
Chief, we have time for one more question, and the lady here.
I had never heard about reserve police or police reserve, whatever, but you
Reserve
mentioned
police
it a
officers,
couple of
yes.
times tonight. The first time I heard about it was this incident in Oklahoma where the reserve police, is it reserve police or police reserve?
Either way is
Either one. Okay.
appropriate,
Where,
yes.
where he was, reaching for the taser and got the gun. What are police reserves?
Basically, it's a police it's an individual who chooses not to be a full-time officer for whatever reason. Maybe you're a doctor, and we've had several doctors who became reserve officers, or they're successful business people, and they will apply for the position. At least in the city of Long Beach, you go through pretty extensive training, and the law changed about 15, 20 years ago, where the training has to be at the same level as a police officer. So there is extensive training. We're down in our numbers for reserves right now. We're going to try and build up our reserve cadre because it's an excellent way of getting people to serve their community. But they do it for free. The only thing it costs us is training and equipment. But in regards to the reserve deputy in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I don't know all the circumstances there. I sure don't like what I'm hearing on the news or on the mainstream media. There's definitely a lot of questions and concerns that I would have if I was a chief there, just to make sure that we're putting the right people out there and they have the right amount of training. Because a mistake like that's a very serious mistake. It obviously cost somebody their life. So that definitely has to be investigated. It sounds like there's going to be some charges brought against the man too.
We have one more question here from the lady who's been in the front row the whole time.
Okay, thank you. Not a question, just a comment. It's on? Okay, this thing on? Okay, just a comment. In regards to the targeting of the dispensaries, I get the sense from people I talk to that it's not the police who are targeting the dispensaries so much as the citizens, the irate citizens who voted against Prop 215, and if they see someone out there who just sneezes or, just scratching his arm or something, then they run to call the police and yell and holler about how horrible these people are acting and so on and so forth. Just a comment.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we are come to the end of the period for questions, and the chief will be around for a few minutes afterwards, and you can ask that. And let's join me in thanking Chief Luna for a wonderful evening. And Rabbi, there's a questionnaire outside at the table. We invite you to fill it out, and receptions, courtesy of Gelson's, everyone is invited to the reception right in the rear. Thank you again, Chief.